Hello everyone, my name is Anna and I am the editorial assistant for Enletawa Journal here in the MA in Language Teaching at the UPTC. I'm pictured here with Dr. Berta Ramos Holguin on the left, who is the editor-in-chief. Today's topic is 10 publishing tips for new authors. So let's begin. My first tip is to plan everything out. There's nothing worse than sitting in front of your computer and staring at a blank Word document and not knowing what to write. So my suggestion is for you to write notes, make an outline, write your favorite authors that you're going to cite and what they said, and have it all organized. That way, when it comes to sitting in front of the computer, you know exactly what you're going to write and how you're going to write it. My next tip is to follow the author's guidelines. Every journal has their own author's guideline. You can find Enletawa Journal's author's guidelines in the back of every journal. But basically, you should know that we use Times New Roman, that it's 12-point font, that it's double-spaced. And in the front page, you want to include a title that is no longer than 12 words. And then you also want to include an abstract in English and what we call a resumen, which is the abstract but in Spanish with some key words. Tip number 3 is to avoid writing long sentences, repeating yourself over and over again, using gendered language and extensive paragraphs. So for the first one, you might want to say, instead of this study aimed at discovering the student's language learning interests, you can reduce it to just this study discovered students' language learning interests. And you can see here how this verb aimed was replaced by something that's stronger, like discovered, which can actually impact your reader. In terms of gendered language, we want to avoid using men, mankind, or him, and using more inclusive language like humanity, men and women, or him and her. And of course, try to avoid extensive paragraphs that are going to lose your reader. Tip number 4 is to write the results and conclusions based on data and not on assumptions. If you want to tell us that the students had a poor level of English, you can show that through their test results or through a personal experience that you lived as a teacher. Tip number 5 is to make sure you cite everything properly to avoid plagiarism. There's nothing more disheartening for me than to open up a document and to see that the author has plagiarized. So to avoid all plagiarism, check out the back of every Enletawa journal for examples on how to use direct citation, summary, and paraphrasing. Tip number 6 is to take all of the evaluators' comments into account. So what we do here at Enletawa is we send your manuscript to 2 evaluators who don't know who you are, and that is called a blind review, and you also won't know who they are. When they receive the article or the manuscript, they will provide some comments to help improve the writing and the content of the paper itself. Once you receive those comments, what you want to do is incorporate both of the evaluators' points of view. Remember that you're in your right not to make a change, but you also have to explain that somehow, either through a comment box or in a separate letter. Tip number 7 is to keep up to date with emails and approvals. Sometimes there are authors who don't check their emails, and that actually slows down the publishing process. And it can also affect the fact of being able to publish that paper. Number 8 is to cheer up after a rejection. Remember that the evaluators don't know who you are, so don't take it so personal. And everything that they write is meant to make your writing better. So in the case that you receive a rejection, you always have the possibility of cleaning up the document, fixing it, and resubmitting. Tip number 9 is don't pressure yourself to make the first edit perfect, because usually it never is. It takes a team of evaluators, friends, family, proofreaders to make that document into what can become a very meaningful piece. And finally, tip number 10 is don't be afraid to send it out there. Honestly, the worst that can happen is that you get feedback, but that feedback is just going to help you keep improving as a writer. Enletawa Journal is happy to invite you to submit your papers to revista.enletawajournal@uptc.edu.co. You can send us your research reports, reflective papers, pedagogical experiences, theoretical reviews, and your poems, short stories, and personal narratives in English, Spanish, and French. Also, for more tips on research, writing, reviews, peer editing, and creative work, you can join us in the Writing Club. To sign up, visit us here in room C224, which is the Masters in Language Teaching office in the Central Building. So we'll see you at the Writing Club, and happy publishing!